Hello and welcome back to the channel. In this video we're gonna be comparing Star Wars The Black Series Glavis Ringworld Mandalorian with the new 2.0 version of the Mandalorian by Medicom toy MAFEX. Now, if you guys are followers of the channel, then you probably know that I have reviews for both of these releases out on the channel, so if you still haven't seen it, go check them out. I did talk a little bit about the comparison between these two figures in my MAFEX review, but that video was already too long. It's like a half an hour review, which makes it my longest action figure review at this point. But I wanted to talk a little bit more about these two releases because I think that they are both phenomenal and they do deserve a bit more in-depth comparison. So we're gonna see not just which one of these two figures is better, but we're gonna talk about the accessories and the overall value, and I will try to give you my answer about which of these two releases for me is the ultimate 6-inch Mando figure. So let's get started. So here we have the two figures out of the box, standing side by side, and we're gonna start off with their overall look. Both figures look really good in this kind of vanilla pose. They have almost the same height. The overall sculpt looks accurate to how the Mandalorian looks in the show, and I feel like both figures have nice proportions. On both of them, the helmets are correct size, proportionate to the rest of the body. They both look like a guy dressed in the suit and armor, but there is some slight differences in the way that these two companies constructed Mando's body. Obviously, this is the Black Series and this is MAFEX 2.0, and you can see that the Black Series is a little bit wider. The best way to see that is in the sculpt of the torso. The chest armor is wider than what we get on the MAFEX one. So the Black Series one looks bulkier, while the MAFEX one looks a bit slimmer. So those are choices that these companies made based on their usual way that they make their body sculpts, and that especially goes for Hasbro because what they are recently doing in the past couple of years is that they have a mold for a basic 6-inch body with the updated articulation, and specifically for their torsos, because for the most part they use their standard mold for the torso, which is made out of the same plastic like for example the arms and the legs, but then they use a softer plastic for the overlay piece that goes over that base torso sculpt. So on most of their figures this is a softer plastic, and that's kind of logical on their part because they are a company that makes these mass-produced action figures, and it's not cheap to make these molds and to get all of this into production. So these companies always have to find a way in which they can reuse some of their molds, and for Hasbro that is much more obvious in their Marvel Legends line, for example, while their Black Series line is usually known for having newly molded and newly sculpted body parts, but there is still a lot of reuse in this line as well. And so that is why they found a way to make a kind of universal torso, and then they use a separately sculpted overlay made out of a softer plastic that goes over the top of that base torso mold. So I'm saying that because that could be the main reason why the chest and the overall look is a bit bulkier, a bit wider than what we get on the MAFEX figure. And so the MAFEX one on the other side doesn't have that many overlays in their sculpt. So for the chest here, it's usually just few pieces connected with ball joints inside, and because they don't have to deal with few different parts going over each other, they can get a much cleaner and much slimmer, slicker looking sculpt like we have here. And going further with that bulkiness of the Black Series, that is the reason why everything else has to be also a bit wider so that it all fits in proportion to the rest of the body. And so what you get is, when you look for example the shoulder armor, you can see that the Black Series one is a bit bigger than the MAFEX one. Same goes for the helmet. Black Series one is a little bit bigger or wider than the MAFEX one. But again, as I said, both of these guys look good overall. They practically have the same height, but the MAFEX one has the drop-down joints in the hips, and so that gives you a little bit more range that you can adjust his height and play around with it depending on what you need for your display or your toy photography. So you have that option here, while the Black Series one doesn't give you that. But that's just a minor difference because again the height is practically the same, and this is probably the perfect height for you because MAFEX one looking like this is really compatible with the rest of your Black Series collection. Taking a better look at the two helmets, we can see that the visor on the Black Series one is a bit wider than what we get on the MAFEX one. That again goes in hand with what we talked about with this body being a bit wider than the MAFEX one. And in terms of the details, the sculpt looks a bit softer on the Black Series one, and that is something that is standard for this line. While on the MAFEX helmet, you can see, for example, these details above the visor look a bit sharper, crisper. There are some lines here in the middle, while on the Black Series one we don't have that detail. And then again, as is the rest of his body, MAFEX Mando has a slightly longer helmet. Moving on to the chest details, we can see that MAFEX has a much sharper sculpt overall. Black Series is a bit softer. And then when you look at the strap, you can see again how sharp this sculpt looks compared to the Black Series one. And while both companies painted these silver bullets, you can see that MAFEX painted even this small piece here where the rifle connects, but the Black Series left that detail unpainted. On the other hand, Black Series has a nice texture on it that gives you kind of the impression that it's some kind of a leather material, while on the MAFEX one there is no texture. It all looks kind of smooth. Here we can compare the two Mudhorn symbols, and in terms of proportions, they both look like they are the same size, but again, the sculpt on the MAFEX one looks sharper than this one. Here we can take a quick look at how the two helmets look from the side, and this angle shows a bit better how the MAFEX helmet sits a bit higher on the neck, and that is the main reason why this figure looks a bit taller, because you can see that the shoulders are practically the same height. And then here is the comparison between the two gauntlets, and you can see while the both companies sculpted the technical details, Hasbro's look messy and soft, while the MAFEX one looks crisp and sharp. And then here is his left arm with the whistling birds, and again, both companies did a good job, but again, the MAFEX one looks sharper. And you can also see that there is a difference in the silver paint for the Beskar armor. Hasbro uses a lighter tone, while the MAFEX went with a bit darker tone. Here is how the legs are sculpted, with all of these details of the suit on them, and if there are some details that are different, like the way that some parts and pieces are positioned, that is because Black Series version is from the Book of Boba Fett, while the MAFEX one is from the second season of The Mandalorian. So there could be slight differences in the suit, but for the most part the suit didn't change that much between season 2, The Book of Boba Fett, and season 3 of The Mandalorian. So both companies did a good job here. Again, the proportions are a bit different. You can see the armor pieces are a bit wider on the Black Series, while on the MAFEX they are slimmer and look longer. On the left leg, this armor piece doesn't have any texture, while MAFEX gave it a bit of splattering, so it does look a bit weathered when you take a closer look at it. On the knee pad, MAFEX gave you a bit of weathering as well, imitating damage, while the Black Series knee pad looks clean and kind of dull. Lower part of the leg looks good on both releases. Bullets are painted on both figures. We have nicely sculpted wrinkles on both of them, and also Hasbro used lighter brown tone, while MAFEX went with a bit darker tone. Looking at the knee pads from the side, you can see that MAFEX did paint these silver pieces that should be like weapons, while the Black Series left them unpainted. Looking at the other side, MAFEX did sculpted the holstered knife, which can't be removed, but this figure still comes with a separate vibro knife accessory. While the Black Series also comes with a vibro knife accessory, they actually give you the option to holster the vibro knife into his boot. So I prefer that. Here is a look at the two holsters, and I feel like both companies did a great job in the sculpt department, but this time I would say that I like Hasbro's version better, because this detail actually looks sharper on the Black Series one compared to the MAFEX one. And again, Black Series one has that texture texture on it, while the MAFEX one looks clean and smooth. Looking at the rest of the belt, I would say that MAFEX did a better job because they painted all of these buttons and the buckle, while Hasbro left it all unpainted and kind of dull looking. Comparing the grenades on the other side of the belt, you can see again that MAFEX did a better job, not just with the sharper sculpt, but also with the paint, because they actually painted the red parts of the grenades, while Hasbro left it unpainted. Here is a look at the back of the figures, and they both look good. Hasbro's sculpt is again a bit softer, while the MAFEX one is sharper, and here are some details that are painted on the MAFEX one, while Hasbro again left it unpainted. For example, here we have like 2 bullets, the same as we have on the other parts of the belt and the strap, but again it is left unpainted here, while the MAFEX did paint those here, and even the buttons on this loose strap are painted on the MAFEX one. And then on top of that, MAFEX gives you a little bit extra because they do give you a back plate that has no peg holes in it, and they give you an alternate back plate that has holes in it and connects to his jetpack, while the Black Series one comes with only one back plate that is connected to the sculpt, and it has peg holes in it so that you can connect his jetpack. That's not a huge difference because for the most part you won't be seeing the figure from the back, and you will probably have the jetpack connected to the back of your Mando figure. So while I do appreciate MAFEX doing that extra step, that wasn't really needed, but they gave us that option. Now for the cape, both companies gave us soft goods cape, which I truly appreciate. I'm someone who prefers soft goods robes and capes over the plastic ones. I really appreciate that Hasbro finally decided to give us a soft goods cape for the Black Series Mando. That gives you a much more room for play, and if you use my simple wiring hack, for which I have a tutorial on my channel, if you haven't, you can check it out. I'll leave a link in the description. So if you use that hack, you can make this soft goods cape a bit more dynamic for your display, which is good. On the other hand, this time MAFEX decided to give us a much better wired cape, so now there is a wire going on both sides, and as you can see, even with the wire, the cape still drapes naturally and it looks good, and it is pliable, you can play with it, it holds the pose, and you can get a lot of nice looking and natural poses with that wire being in the cape. And also both companies gave us that damaged aesthetic of the cape. Both of them made holes in the lower part and also made this lower edge look rough like this. So I feel like both companies did a great job on that part. And since we are looking at the back of the figure, we can take a closer look at the back of the helmet. And again, Hasbro's sculpt looks softer, while the MAFEX one looks sharper and it has a bit more details sculpted in. Now let's compare the articulation of these two figures, and let's see which one gives you a better movement, a better range. This is how far they can look down, this is how far they can look up, this is how far the head can tilt to the side, and both of the heads have 360 rotation. This is how far the arms can go out, and you can see that here Hasbro has a better range. They both have butterfly joints, but MAFEX version has a better range of the arm going across the chest than the Black Series one. This is how much the elbows bend, and I feel like both of these could have a bit better range. They are both kind of limited, but in this case Black Series has a slight advantage over the MAFEX one because the bend is a bit better than 90 degrees, which MAFEX gives you. And then the Black Series has a swivel in the elbow, while MAFEX also has a swivel but just above the elbow. As far as the wrist joints go, Black Series uses their standard hinge joints, so the right hand goes up and down and the left one goes in and out, while the MAFEX uses their standard ball peg joints that can turn in any direction that you want. So MAFEX has a better range in that articulation point as well. For the torso articulation, I feel like both of these figures are limited, but when you want to turn the torso to the side, MAFEX one gives you a much better range. Now I'm sure that you could probably force this guy to get a bit more twist to the side, but I don't want to force it, I don't want to break anything. on either of these figures. So this is how much I was willing to go. And I also have to say that in my review of this 2.0 MAFEX, I feel like I didn't emphasize enough that this guy has this kind of option to turn, because I was so much caught up with the limitations of the crunch in the torso that I feel like I missed the opportunity to show you guys that when you utilize the lower joint in the torso, you can get a nice twist to the side. So in this department, MAFEX again takes the win. This is how far these two guys can tilt to the side, and again, it's almost the same thing. MAFEX one has maybe just a slight better tilt, but it's practically the same thing. Believe it or not, this is how much both of these guys can crunch forward. Hasbro has a slight advantage, but I feel like both of them have a terrible forward crunch. This is how much they can bend to the back, and I feel like they are almost identical, but MAFEX one has a slightly better bend. Black Series one has a better forward bend, while the MAFEX one has a better bend to the back. For the splits, this is how much these two guys can spread their legs. I feel like the MAFEX one has a bit better range, but it's not a huge difference. Both of the figures have a thigh swivel, and as I already mentioned, MAFEX one has a drop down joint, and this is how much their legs can move forward. MAFEX one has a slightly better range. This is how far their legs move to the back, and you can see that the MAFEX one obviously has a better range. This is how much you can get their knees to bend, and I would say that it's practically the same thing. And then the Black Series one has a swivel in the knee, while the MAFEX one doesn't. MAFEX Mando has a better range of the feet moving forward, but Black Series has a better range of feet moving back. MAFEX has a toe joint, while the Black Series doesn't, and then both of them have a nice ankle pivot, but the Black Series range is better. And then, of course, I have to address the cape one more time. Black Series one isn't wired, while the MAFEX one is, and so that can be seen as an additional articulation point. Now, I have to say only few words about the quality of the plastic. These two companies use different types of plastic. Hasbro uses a kind of softer plastic that is more pliable and can be kind of gummy, while Medicom toy MAFEX uses a bit more rigid, a bit sturdier type of plastic. And that is why when you articulate the joints, Hasbro version can be smoother and quieter, while the MAFEX figure will have that squeaking of the plastic. So in that sense, you have to be a bit more careful with the MAFEX one, because you don't want to break anything, and I feel like Hasbro figures in general are made for a more broader audience, for younger and older people, so that if Hasbro's figure does drop to the floor, it probably has less chance of being damaged than if the same thing happens to the MAFEX figure. But on the other hand, Hasbro's boxes do say ages 4+, while MAFEX boxes say ages 15+. Adult collectible, not a toy, recommended for ages 15 and up. So obviously these two companies are aiming for different age groups. Hasbro one is more universal, while the MAFEX one is aiming more towards the adult collectors. And so, because this is not a kid's toy, but a collectible, the general understanding is that a person that buys a MAFEX figure will probably be more cautious with it and handle it with more care. Now we're gonna compare the amount of accessories that these two figures come with. And spoiler alert, MAFEX release obviously obliterates the Black Series one. I mean, just this shot tells you everything that you need to know. MAFEX release is stacked to the teeth with the amount of accessories, while the Black Series one is light. And the crazy thing is that for the Black Series, this amount of accessories means that this guy comes with much more accessories than what is the usual standard for this line. Now, I won't be going through each and every accessory. If you're interested to see those, you can watch my reviews of both of these figures. But I just wanted to show you this shot here so that you can get the better idea of the amount of extra stuff that these two guys come with. So, just a quick overview. Black Series Mando comes with his jetpack, the dark saber, pistol blaster, and the vibro knife. While the MAFEX 2.0 Mando comes with two versions of Grogu, the one that has the full body body and the one that comes in the pouch, and then 2 alternate head sculpts, another helmeted one with the flashlight and the unmasked Din Djarin head, and then the jetpack and all kinds of different weapons that Mando used over the 3 seasons of the show. So you literally get everything here. You even get 2 versions of the rifle. You also get few different types of effects. Effects for the jetpack, effects for the flamethrower, for whistling birds, even for firing the rifle. And this guy also comes with a pistol and the vibro knife. And then you get all these different types of hand gestures that just gives so much life to this figure. And now, of course, we have to mention the price. Obviously, the MAFEX one is the more expensive release, which is understandable just by the amount of the accessories. And so the retail price of the Black Series one is around $25 to $30 US, or in the EU, you can get this guy for 30 euros from Hasbro Pulse EU site. On the other hand, MAFEX release cost around $65 US plus shipping and import charges that depend on which country you live in. So yes, just looking at the figure by itself, you will get a great 6-inch Mandalorian in the Black Series line for the half of the price of this MAFEX release. But then we have to take into consideration what it is that you prefer. Do you prefer options and much more accessories and a slightly better articulation, or are you on a budget and you prefer to get just a great looking figure with much less accessories? So it all depends on what you want for your collection. If you ask me, I'm someone who's leaning more towards this. And then if we continue to talk about the price, about the fact that Black Series figure cost half of the price of the MAFEX one, I also want to talk about the way that these two companies, Hasbro and Medicom Toy MAFEX, play this toy making game. For example, let's say that you want to buy only that one ultimate, the definitive 6-inch Mando figure for your display. And let's say that you want to have Grogu with your Mando. You want to have all these different weapons and you want to have an unhelmeted head sculpt. If you never bought any other Mando figure before this one, if you buy this MAFEX 2.0 version, you will get everything included in that set. On the other hand, if you want all the mentioned accessories with your Black Series figure, you will have to spend much more money to get all of that. And what I mean by that is that Hasbro already gave us so many previously released Mando figures. And some of the accessories that come with this 2.0 MAFEX Mando, we do have in the Black Series line. But the problem is that they were never included in a single release, but they were spread across the line so that if you, in this case, you want to get them and add them as your options for posing this Black Series Mando, you will have to go on eBay, or you will have to be someone who bought some of the previously released Black Series Mandalorians. So, moving forward with this discussion, let's say that you want to have your Mando with his rifle. This release doesn't come with the rifle, and so we do have the Black Series rifle, but it comes with previously released Mandos. So if we add this, that means an extra cost, either by going to eBay and buying just the rifle or getting some of the previous releases. And then the most important accessory for your 6-inch Mando is obviously Grogu. You don't get a Grogu with this release, but Hasbro did previously released Grogu many times. They released him as a standard single release 2 times at this point, if I'm not mistaken. So this is their first Black Series Grogu that came in that small packaging with the frog and a few accessories. And recently they released him again as a single release that came with the pram and a few different accessories as well, for the same price of $25 to $30 US or 30 euros. If you are, let's say, paying the standard retail price and you want to have this Mandalorian and this Grogu, you will be paying somewhere between $50 to $60 US or euros. Keep that in mind. So with that, and let's even add the rifle, we have almost reached the price of this MAFEX release that comes with all that you see here. But let's not stop there, because let's say that if you're someone like me, you want to be able to pose your Mando figure in a flying flying pose. And while this release does come with his jetpack, it doesn't come with the jetpack boost effects, like the MAFEX one. But again, Hasbro does have the mold for that effect. These are the jetpack boost effects from the Black Series, and these ones were released with the Return of the Jedi Deluxe Boba Fett. So keep in mind that whenever Hasbro releases some of their deluxe figures, their price goes up. The deluxe Black Series figure goes for around $40 to sometimes even $50 US or euros here in the EU. And the way that Hasbro decides if a release is standard or deluxe can be kind of shady at times, because we had few examples where they did release a Mando with Grogu and let's say the jetpack, few weapons, and that was labeled as a deluxe set. So if you want to have these Black Series jetpack boost effects, you will need to buy them on secondary market, or you needed to buy that deluxe Return of the Jedi Boba Fett. So let's say that we have, and we're gonna add these effects to our Mando here. So with that, now I paid around $100 to have all of this. But MAFEX still beats it. So let's say the MAFEX one has the flamethrower, and so I will also have to go back to that Return of the Jedi Deluxe Boba, which came with the flamethrower. So we'll add that. But the MAFEX one still comes with his grappling hook. So again, we'll have to go back to that Deluxe Return of the Jedi Boba, and we'll have to take his grappling hook and add it to our Black Series Mando. So because these three accessories came with that Deluxe Boba, the price won't go up. But with all of this, we are still talking about the price around $100. While at the same time, with the MAFEX 2.0 Mandalorian, we are again talking about the price of $65, and even if we add to that the shipping cost and the import charges, I feel like we would still be at max at the same price that this here would cost us. And then we can go even further and we can say that we want to have the unhelmeted Din Djarin alternate head sculpt for our Black Series Mando, and in the past Hasbro did give us releases with that Din Djarin head that looked like crap, but they do have the mold. I don't have those releases, so I can't visually in person include it in this bundle here. It could be included here, but you would again need to buy it from eBay, or you would have to buy one of those releases that came with that head sculpt. So that means that the price for all of this plus the head sculpt would go even higher, and even with that you will still be short of all of these extra hands and even all of these other effects. And then there is also another thing that I have to add to our MAFEX Mando, and that is the MAFEX stand, because all of the MAFEX figures always come with their stand, and this is so important for a character like the Mandalorian, because you get all of these accessories for putting him into a flying pose, and so you need a stand for that. So for the Black Series, even if you had all of this, you are still missing a stand to pose this guy on your shelf in a flying pose. So that's another plus for the MAFEX release. So you see, that is what I mean by looking at the way that these two companies play the game. In order to have all of these accessories, all of these options in the Black Series line, you need to buy multiple of different releases just so that you can get your ultimate 6-inch Mandalorian figure. And to be able to do that, it will cost you $100+ US or euros. And you would probably be stuck with a few Black Series figures that are inferior to this one. On the other hand, if you want to buy only one release that would be your ultimate, your definitive 6-inch Mandalorian action figure, all you need to do is just buy this MAFEX 2.0 version. And here you get everything plus even more than what you would get in the Black Series line. And so even if at first the price for this release is double the price of this Glavis Ringworld Mando, when you would want to even the amount of value and the amount of accessories, this release will turn out to be a far better option for you than to go go in and get all of the stuff here, and you are still getting much more. So that's just at least how I'm looking at this comparison. If you feel differently and have different opinion, feel free to share it down in the comments. And so at the end, it's really obvious which one out of these two releases I consider to be a better release. For me, it's the MAFEX 2.0 version of the Mandalorian. Yes, it cost double the price of the Black Series Ringworld Mando, but when you consider that you are getting a sharper sculpt, a wired cape, a slightly better articulation, a flight stand, two versions of Grogu, all different kinds of weapons and additional effects, and then a ton of different hand gestures, for me it's a no-brainer. I like to be able to display my figure in all kinds of different poses, and if you are someone like me who likes to do the same, and if you're into toy photography, you want to get as much as you can out of a release that you bought, MAFEX 2.0 Mandalorian is the ultimate 6-inch Mando to date. Don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean that I'm saying that Black Series Glavis Ringworld Mando is a bad figure. It's a phenomenal figure, a phenomenal release. I love all the retooling changes that Hasbro did on this figure. It's one of the best figures ever made in the line, and if you're on a budget and you don't need all that I showed you here, but you just want Mando and few of those accessories that come with him, then this is a phenomenal option for you. But again, if you want to have that one ultimate representation of the character, MAFEX 2.0 Mandalorian is a winner of this comparison. So that is all I wanted to show you guys in this video, and now I would really love to hear what you think. Did I miss something that you wanted to see in this comparison? If you maybe have some more insights, some more information, please share it down in the comments and let's talk about it. If you want to see the reviews, both of those videos are on the channel. I will link them down in the description of this video so you can check them out. Special thank you goes out to my supporters on Patreon. As always, thank you guys for helping me to continue to make my content. And of course, to all the rest of you guys, thank you all so much for watching my videos, for being here with me, and I'll see ya in the next one.